So I'm headed outside for a little walk tonight. I decided to talk about why it's so exciting for me that my legs are killing me. So, when I was a teenager, my feet really hurt because about the time I was 7 or 8 years old, I started to get really bad anxiety, and my arches in my feet started to collapse. And they kept collapsing for a few years until I had inverted arches by the time I was, about 9 or 10. So it was pretty painful, but I got used to it. I mean, when you live with pain on a daily basis like that, it becomes your new norm. So it was really dealing with degrees of pain, and what was intolerable for most people was normal for me. And literally my level of no pain was, what most people would consider intolerable pain for most of my youth. Needless to say, this was compounded by my lack of activity, which led to obesity, which only extenuated the circumstances. And then I had several surgeries starting at the age of 18. I think I've had about 6 in total. One of them was to reverse my very first surgery, which was a failure. And another one was to replace a surgery that had broken not once but twice, which resulted in titanium plating that was turned into shrapnel in my foot, which I had walked around for about 4 months because I was planning on being in a wedding, and I didn't want to miss it because I wouldn't be able to walk for about 3 months. So yeah, pain was pretty much a norm for me until about the age of, I guess, 27. And then after all the surgeries were done, I still was, about 50% pain, and but which was a massive improvement. I'm gonna sit down because this dock is kind of squeaking. So, what does this have to do with me being told I would never be able to run again? Well, had gotten the surgeries, had improved the pain, and but after that last surgery, which was the surgery that I wasn't supposed to have because it was, the breakage, I was told that because I was exercising and, playing volleyball and stuff, and I was dancing, and my surgeon told me that, if I didn't lose weight, I'd never be able to run again because this would keep happening. I'd keep hurting my feet, and I wasn't able to run without risking breaking the surgery. And I was like, no big deal. It's been, well over 10 years since I was able to run, so not a big deal. And I just started to believe that I would never be able to run again. It wasn't even that, there was an option to run again. It was just in my mind. I had literally brainwashed myself to believe that I would never run again. And I had a friend a couple years ago that I met when I was living up in the Rockies area, and he really challenged me because I was working out at that time and trying to lose weight and being real mindful of stuff. And he's actually the one who introduced me to Soylent, which has been a life changer to me, a lifesaver in so many ways. regulating moods and all that stuff, and helping me lose weight and gain strength. But he really drilled something into my head that, like, I could run again if I really believed in it. And I did. Like, I was telling him how ridiculous that was. Like, I was told I would never be able to run again. And it was really interesting because I went back to my surgeon to get orthotics a couple years ago, and I told him about that, and he's like, what are you talking about? Like, of course you can run again. And I had totally forgotten that was, like, I had literally brainwashed myself into believing that I could never run again. And these are, like, this is the power of our ability to want something. I wanted the easy way out. And, I had been working so hard at things, but I just didn't believe in myself. And over the past year, I have lost, according to the scale, about 130 pounds. I've probably gained about 50 pounds in muscle, but that hasn't been until about the past, 3 months. I didn't have access to a gym during the time of losing most of this weight. But I still found ways to work out. Starting about 6 to 9 months ago, I did yoga, and did as much walking as I could, but it was tough because it was winter and I was in a snowy area. But I did what I could, and I lost probably the first 80 pounds without doing any diet or exercise at all. Like, it was all mental, all changing the way I thought about myself. And that's something that, I still think about. If I went back in time a few years and told that to myself, I would probably kill myself, because I think, I'm the devil or something. I'm lying. I'm obviously lying. And I'm just, now I'm realizing, I don't expect anyone to believe this. But, I lost 80 pounds in, 4 or 5 months without any diet or exercise. And then I started to cut back on certain things, like sugar, processed meats, then processed salts, then just processed foods, processed cheese. And I still cut out about 80% of my sugar and sodium and oil intake. And I'm it's so mind-boggling for me to think now, yes, it looks like a diet. Essentially I'm pesca vegan, which means I eat fish and eggs. Pesca vegan, but SOS, not quite SOS free, but 80% off sugar, oil, and salt. And I'm now I realize yes, it sounds like I've been dieting the past year, but over half of this weight came off without doing anything but changing the way I look at myself, my mindset. And then my habits slowly started to change. And they were happening in a natural way where it's I would become aware of it for a couple of weeks. And then I realized I had been practicing something for a couple of weeks. And then I realized it had gotten so easy to practice that it had become a lifestyle that, that one thing was added to my lifestyle, and I let a bad habit go and replaced it with something better. And it just started to stack. So it's like I started a diet, but it, by the time I actually started changing things in my diet, it wouldn't have looked like I was dieting. It took about 3 to 4 months before it actually looked like I was following a diet. Literally just from listening to my body, listening to my cravings, asking myself why, and really encouraging myself to listen to my body about how I felt after certain things, and my whole mindset changed. And I still feel I'm a lying hippie, which is kind of surreal, because I still have trouble hearing the words that are coming out of my mouth. I constantly worry that I'm gonna sound like one of those anti-sugar freaks or anti-meat freaks talking about this stuff, but like sometimes I think about the fact, like, I may never eat like ribs or like a beef burger or like a real chicken patty like ever again, and I may never have like ice cream or like really any frozen. Like, I realize when you cut out both like dairy and sugar, like there's no frozen treats left for me, and I'm just like, crap. Like, I can barely handle chocolate covered bananas, and I'm like, freak. Like, it's so surreal. Like, but I've come to terms with the fact, like, I would never encourage anybody to do this. Like, it's something that, like, you don't do because you want to do. Like, if you have to be encouraged to do this, don't do it. Like, you do it because you need to, because you want to, and that's it. But, like, I sometimes feel crazy because I realize, like, I can't talk about food with people anymore because, like, I sound like I'm preaching. Like, I can't talk about the way I eat or even the fact that I miss certain things in my diet without, like, inadvertently guilting people. And I'm like, I can't talk about food anymore. And I'm like, what the hell am I going... Like, I'm realizing how much we talk about food. Like, we talk over food or we talk about food at least half of the times. We talk with people that, like, we're not married to or we're not raising as children. And it's blowing my mind how, like, how crazy it is that, like, I want to still think I'm a foodie, but I don't know how to talk about being a foodie in a way that anyone other but, like, extreme vegans would care about hearing anymore. And I'm like, I hear the ridiculous of this. I'm like, it's not that I'm complaining. I'm just like, it's so surreal. It's like an out-of-body experience, and I, like, want to beat myself up. And it's super surreal. And I'm getting off on a tangent here, but let me wrap this up by saying I went to the gym today, building that routine back up. I got out of the habit for about a week and a half, was working on some emotional intelligence stuff, so I wanted to get back into the habit today. So I was only in the gym for about maybe 5 or 6 minutes, and about over half of that time, it was 3.5 minutes on the treadmill running. And this is not my first day doing that. The first day that I did that, it was like, I think 30 seconds. And then the next day it was 60 seconds. The day after that, it was 2.5 minutes. And I'm now, like, pushing myself to run and thinking how surreal it is that, like, even just a few years ago, like, I had brainwashed myself into believing that I would never run again. And now I'm running, not because, I need to for the cardio, like, not because, I'm trying to look better or lose weight. Like, I'm running literally because I'm, like, I'm proving myself wrong. And for the first time in my adult life, I love being wrong. I love being wrong. Like, I had so many self-limiting beliefs. And I had so many people that were in my life that were supporting these self-limiting beliefs because they loved me or they didn't know me. And it was so crazy that I had it in my inner and outer circles. And most of the people who really, truly love me, like, they, handled the purge with stride, and they're here stronger than ever, supporting me and loving me. But most of the people, I'd say 80 to 90% of the people that, said they loved me or just, knew of me and were, like, in one of my influence circles because of, social media and the era we live in, and they're just gone. So, like, I'm rebuilding from scratch. It feels like I'm, like, 11 years old again, making friends, and, like, the amount of people I have in my life that I can count on. It's like being, like, an 11-year-old out on my own. Like, I have very few people outside of, like, my family, and it's super surreal because of some of the major lifestyle switches I had. Not many to do with, like, the health and fitness side of things, but more like what was holding me back up here. Number one, what helped me become more intelligent, but also kept me from finding my own personal wisdom, my own personal truth, and getting on my own personal journey. And once I released that and those people, I flourished. And I mean, like, I've been shredding apart my self-limiting beliefs in a way that, like, you know, I don't know if it's just because I went so long believing that I was broken that now it's just, I feel invigorated, like, cutting through all these self-limiting beliefs I had. Some of them, like, I'm really fulfilling. Like, I'm not letting them go completely. I'm realizing I'm rediscovering them, but finding how they apply to me. And I don't need the ideologies that they were attached to, and it works even better not having those guilt and shame and blame trips hanging me down all the time. People that, you know, literally can't not judge me because of the people I was surrounded with, and most of which, like, had nothing even to do with religion. They were just people that I was in, like, maybe political groups with or other, like, intellectual groups with. And, like, there was even a point when I started to speak out about my own self-limiting beliefs, and I had my first fan page, and it was literally to mock me. And, like, I bought a URL, a domain to point to that Facebook group. I think it's, like, self-limiting beliefs for hyperintellectuals.com or something like that. I'll try and figure that out, and, like, I'll look up the URL that I found, that I bought for it to point to it. It was, like, a year ago. But, like, I was so flattered that, like, I could share my personal truth and, like, offend so many people to action that they literally created a fan page on Facebook with my likeness and, like, a bloated, like, you know, evil genius, like, brain head around, like, my head. Like, I was so flattered. Like, I've also in my past brainwashed myself to, like, literally love people to mock me and make fun of me, and I'm like I get off on that. It's really weird, but, like, it brings me joy, and I'm like, it's not a self-deprecating thing. Like, I practice self-deprecating humor. It's definitely not like that, and I don't really practice that kind of humor anymore, but I did, and this is, like, it was so weird to see that, like, when I started speaking about what was helping me improve on things that I literally believed were impossible for me, people were so offended that they tried to shame me into silence. And it only helped me understand, like, how right I was. And I was kind of sad that it only lasted for another, like, 2 or 3 months past that. Hate motivates people to, well, not really hate, like, hate comes from disgust. Disgust motivates people to act quickly and passionately, but it burns out quickly. And I'm realizing, like, I gained momentum, while the people around me that were trying to hold me back were losing it. And now I'm at a point where I'm surrounded by people who love me, care about me, and believe in me, in a city that I've never lived in before, helping people do things that I know how to do, they want to know how to do, and I'm helping them with, you know, no obligations, no expectations. I'm doing it just because. And I'm, like, running. Like, and I've run more in the past 2 weeks than I have over the past decade, and it's only added up to probably about a half hour. And that's something, like, when you believe in yourself, you can do the impossible, because the impossible is relative. So if you're trying to fly like Superman, you know, maybe you're from Krypton, I don't know, but, like, believe in yourself, and as long as you're not jumping off a cliff to try and prove to yourself that you can fly like Superman, I will, like, completely support you in pretty much everything else. So, like, believe in yourself, and, you know, if you want to believe you're Superman, maybe start with the trampoline, you know, start with the steps that you can control and just keep stepping forward, because it's only a matter of time before you find your way to fly.